Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Reaction Time podcast, where we usually talk about professional League of Legends, sometimes somewhat. But in this episode, instead, we're going to talk about the TV show Arcane, which is now completely out. All 9 episodes of the first, but not final season, are on Netflix. With that said, here's your warning. We're going to talk about the plot of all of the episodes of Arcane. There will be spoilers.
Spoilers. Run.
If you haven't watched the whole show, turn your YouTube off and go watch it. Then come back and watch us. We appreciate your click. Come back in a few hours. So, with that said, there are going to be spoilers from this point forward. Your loss if you keep listening. And my dog cares. With that said, I'm David, Steven's here, Eric's here, and we're joined by special guest Doug, friend of the program Doug, here for the very first time to talk about Arcane with us. Hooray, welcome Doug.
Thank you for having me. Very excited to join for this episode and talk about really one of the best shows around right now.
Provably.
It's been getting a lot of the props, and I know the Netflix's top 10 tracking website had it top of English language viewing at all this week, which is impressive and good to know. I'm curious to see, we can just start here in terms of critical reflection. I'm curious to see if it's gonna get reviewed by any more mainstream TV criticism angles, like any of the bigger national newspapers or anything like that. Obviously, the IGN review giving it a 10 out of 10 was what it was. It was a very well-written review, and I thought it summarized things really well. There are also related memes to IGN scoring as it relates to the financial contributions of certain companies to certain places. So, grains of salt, etc. But,
Rotten Tomatoes is still really high.
Yeah, the critical reception and Rotten Tomatoes score, IMDb score has all been very, very high. So, have you guys been? I don't know. What have you seen in terms of critical reception? We all obviously I think we all very much enjoyed it, so we know where we're at. But have you been surprised at the media coverage, at how big it's gotten, how much Riot's pushed it? Eric, I'll start with you on this.
While it's been impressive that it's been doing well while it's live, I don't think anything's really past the hype stuff from before it actually went live, when they did the Dubai skyline with it on all the buildings. I've heard great things about the Undercity Nights event, and so maybe we can talk about that at some point, but nothing really stuck out to me with media attention in general for this.
Steven, what do you think? You're a consumer here.
I've been avoiding too much spoiler territory as far as those kind of contents go, but really focusing on the in-game events are really hype. The amount of Twitch and Twitter integrations have been actually really surprising given the platform that Riot has. Honestly, just doing it within their own products. It is really new. I don't think they have done too many overlaps, maybe a Wild Rift or a Runeterra kind of thing, but going all out with every across the board, except for Valorant, which give and take. They've really pushed this product. They've definitely I've seen Google ads on it. In a couple places that I didn't expect it to be, so that's got me really hyped as far as they're willing to spend the money on ad revenue. So, it's a lot, but the chatter about it is I'm not aware of, because I've been avoiding spoilers as much as I can and not polluting my own thought process with other people's narratives. So,
I have not done that. Doug, what have you seen around? What have you thought about the perception?
I think I'm mostly in the same boat as Steven is, where I've actively tried to avoid a lot of what maybe is out in the world, so I don't poison my own reaction to it. So I can't say that I've seen anything different than Steven or Eric, but I will say it is rather impressive. Just how much they pushed it ahead of time, and then it was good. So I think that's maybe why we're getting so much like post show visibility. That's maybe not the right way to say it, but I think just I think the fact that it turned out to be a good, essentially video game adaptation, is going to produce more like mainstream media coverage as it goes on, and especially once we get into as we approach season 2, mainstream coverage will look back at like season 1 and be like, oh wow, here was this thing that did really well that a lot of sort of like maybe old school people didn't expect to do well, and then that'll lead into the future. But as far as right now, I think Steven and Eric hit on a lot of the big points.
The other thing I wanted to mention is I found it interesting. Riot did a great job with its promotion, like outside and advertising and all this thing. I don't think Netflix did that good of a job of pushing it, particularly in the first couple of weeks. I know when I went to watch Act 1, I had to search it up on the Netflix main page, and it wasn't like anywhere in their new stuff. It wasn't anywhere in like the scrolls and the categories. Which like my Netflix account, I watch anime on. I watch like cartoon-ish stuff that is like tangential to this. You would think this would have gotten seeded into my interests by default, let alone being in the here's the new Netflix releases. And so I know that got rectified eventually, but it just feels like that to me is like, is Netflix putting their full weight behind this as much as they could have been? And I didn't feel like they were, and that even like that could take it up another degree in my eyes.
Yeah, so something that I'm curious to see is that now that it's all the way out and they have like the full set, that Netflix might push it harder. Netflix hasn't really pushed anything that's like as released, and I wonder if Riot negotiated some kind of exclusive like promotion rights, because like the Twitch events are very important, and then like the experience of watching it with the peers is kind of important. So I'm wondering if the reason that it was slightly sandbagged in Netflix's like advertising line was to give Riot the breathing room like while it was releasing to promote it and do their own insulated kind of advertising. And then now that it's completely out, if we'll see something go more of the length of like Tiger King, like, oh, it's a meme, like we're promoting it really hard because it's doing well now.
The other thing that I've been kind of keeping an eye on is obviously like I use Reddit, I scroll Reddit for opinions, I find takes on Reddit. I have found it interesting to compare the takes on the show between the League of Legends subreddit, that obviously is filled with Arcane content, and the general television subreddit, which has also had largely very positive reviews. There have also been accusations that, hey, all the people from our League of Legends are just brigading our television to push their content, which I'm not necessarily ruling out. However, like, there have been enough posts of like, hey, I don't give a shit about League of Legends. Arcane's really good. Go watch it. I don't know anything about it. It's really good. Go watch it. Like, it's starting to push into that, the category that it needs to go into, which is I'm interested in this content, but I either don't know about or actively dislike League of Legends as a concept. So that has been like, if it's going to continue to make inroads, that's the first community that it needs to make inroads with, and I think it's successfully done that thus far.
Yeah, the worst thing they could have done is made the League of Legends community not like your content and then not advocate for it. So, like, that's like step one.
That was some of my favorite contents I say about it is like people are talking about like, oh, this is just League of Legends people just coming in and posting. I'm like, look, if you know our community, we wouldn't do that if we didn't actually like the thing. Please take a look at the last time Riot tried to do a lore event in game. or what happens when we don't like something that they do. Because the Sentinels of Light event was a hardcore disaster, and it was awful.
That was boo boo.
So
It certainly wasn't great. Wasn't great.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and dig into this. I got to watch parts of this with some of you in this chat, so I know some of reactions, and we've the four of us have kind of talked on and off about some kind of general thoughts. So, general first take, if you were going to summarize your thoughts on this show in like 2 sentences, a short paragraph, what would you say your initial reaction to the series as a whole was, Steven?
I think it's a video game masterpiece. I think this is a great piece of cinema. I enjoyed it thoroughly. It's really good to the lore buff. It's really good to the people that just like the characters. It's just like good story as well, like classism and like struggle, internal struggle, external struggle, influences. So like the whole set of, I guess it's a micro series. I don't know if it's going to like continue on within the Piltover and Zon Independence kind of like story arc, but that in a nutshell is just good storytelling. And I'm hoping that because it is just at a baseline level very good, it ascends past like it's a video game adaptation, because I think it's really not. It is a good piece of narrative story writing.
Okay, Doug, your turn. Initial like right off the top ideas.
Yep. So my gut reaction is this is truly one of the probably the 5 best things that has been produced in the calendar year 2021. I might be hard pressed to think of like all 5 of those things because I don't watch as much streaming as a lot of people. But I think for me, Arcane ranks right around like number 2, behind only MODOK. But that's unique to like my preferences. But I truly think that it is an excellent piece of storytelling that doesn't have anything to do mostly with the video game. They pull all these characters out, they put them in a setting that anyone can appreciate and recognize, regardless of their familiarity with the game.
Eric.
Well, I guess my initial gut check is man, I'm excited for how they're queuing up like what happens next with like the Riot cinematic universe,
Yep.
Like
Yep.
where there's like this, like right in the final arc, they queue up Noxus, and then it's like, oh well, what's Noxus? Who are these people who are showing up? What's going on here? And that was really exciting that it was going beyond just Piltover into now, what's happening there's other places. Oh, there's all this cool stuff that we're getting hints of, but we didn't get like a full dump on. I want to know what's the scoop. So I was excited for what it enabled and like the vision there, in addition to like the characters and the plot inside the show itself. I think it did a great job in like really whetting an appetite, and that was really neat.
So mine is going to kind of go combined with my next question, because honestly, the first thing that I would say about this show to someone else is it is one of the coolest looking works of animation that I have ever watched. The things that Fortiche did to really set this apart in terms of visual styling and in terms of creating and building on the universe that existed, the concepts that existed, was absolutely incredible. And like that's the starting point. It is a beautiful, incredibly animated piece of art. Like, throw out anything about the story. Like, that's where I want to start. And Steven, I do want to start with you with this as the artist in the thread. Walk us through what you thought about how Fortiche brought this to life visually.
So there's two components that I'll appreciate, and that the first one is that when Riot kind of like renovated their game as far as like the Summoner's Rift updated, they created this like borderline cell shaded like Borderlands style that worked for them that doesn't age, which I think is really valuable when you're talking about a video game and you're talking about an animated film. I think of like I think it's all Bass, whoever does like the Rudolph Red-Nosed Reindeers, the stop motion stuff like that is of the era, and because it is so stylized, it's timeless. We're looking at that with this kind of animated style. Like, you're going to be able to put this on in 10 and it's going to be received the same. Like, you can upscale it, you can do all these kind of things, make it look good on our like 300 inch plasma plus TVs or whatever we have in the future. It's going to look the same because it is a stylized animation, which works. It really emphasizes facial expressions and impacts and those kind of things, which is really lends itself well to the type of story that we're telling. We're talking about personal struggle, we're talking about societal struggles, and that the animation style that they've come up with and then executed on, it has a lot of weight. You can feel like the impact of emotion, you can feel the actual impact of like hits and fight scenes. Like, the fight scenes look good, the emotional breakdowns of characters look good, just like we can even look at like how like the sequel series of Star Wars, which I won't go into, like you can pause it at any frame and it looks good, and that's your new desktop screen. Like, you can do this with this set of episodes as well. It's like you can pause it anywhere and like that's your new screensaver. It looks
If
good.
you haven't tried doing that with Arcane, go try it. Like, you literally can just pause it and be like, I would look at this as a background for a week.
Absolutely, because it's a piece of art. It's really good aesthetically.
Eric, any thoughts on the visual design of the show?
Man, I really liked the decisions that were made, and that it took me a little while to get used to as somebody who's more into 2D animation than most people in the world. But it was really pretty.
Flat as Justice, 2021.
I didn't in 2D, sure, I guess. But like so
I couldn't resist.
but it was really nice, and I really was impressed by what they did with it. I am really more hoped for, what's gonna come next, though. Like, are they going to get to do more of a traditional anime style presentation kind of thing, or is that too much to hope for with, what can they bring to the table? But like, this studio has so much good stuff that seems unlikely to me that they won't find a way to make it work.
Doug, thoughts on visual design?
Man, can I just like go, considering all the perils and pitfalls of this actual universe, can I just like go live in Piltover for a while? Like, that's how I feel about how pretty Piltover is. But no, seriously, Piltover definitely. We get a lot of time in Piltover, as opposed to like big shots of Zaun. So I think that's easier to truly evaluate. And Piltover seems to give off like Rapture from BioShock vibes. Like, it's got that sort of like Art Deco-y style to me. And Steven, maybe I'm completely wrong, but it's like it's like Rapture before it gets like blown up. So everything is very pretty. Yeah, it's something that people would resonate with, because there's still architecture like that in our own life. No, I think they did a great job with it. Thinking of your point, Eric, like animation style, I think if they switch settings, there's absolutely room to switch the animation style to reflect where they are in the world.
Well, and that was the point I wanted to hit on that too, is like, if you're doing an Ionia story, it should be anime style, because that kind of makes sense.
Absolutely.
Something I want to touch on before we get too far, because you Doug, you hit on two good points, because you have these huge landscape scenes of Piltover, which is a land of opportunity. You can see the potential and see all these things around you. And you get like really tightness, close, claustrophobic, oppressive shots of Zaun. And like this just goes into the cinema and like what they're doing with like the scenes and what they're choosing to show in the different regions, which I think is a huge part of League of Legends. Is like each region has this kind of motif that they're trying to present, and like Piltover is open opportunity, like focus on skylines, focus on like the buildings that they've built up and doing that. And then like Zaun is like a lot of down shots, like looking down at the filth, claustrophobic, tight. That's a lot of attention to detail, and what you're trying to convey visually is really vital.
So the other visual elements that I wanted to make sure I hit on, the animating as if you were using a camera, I thought was exceptionally well done. Just like positioning oneself in a position in the background of a scene that is affected by the events of the scene. There were many, many cool moments of that technique being used throughout the series, and that was like striking to me to watch. And also like to take another thing from traditional like live action cinema, the fight choreography was exceptionally well done, even in a universe that is, there's magic here, there's Jace's giant hammer and shock blasts, but like Vi's fight scene choreography, Jinx's choreography throughout the series, the bits of melee action that she got to do, I really enjoyed. Like you could feel impacts of that. A lot of people will talk about like the Jinx and Echo scene at the end of episode 7. Like that's the how that set up was really cool to watch.
A big point is like the weight of each character is very well conveyed. Like out of the gates, you can see like the weight of like Vander on the bridge, and then like you jump into the scene where they're jumping through the city, and like Vi can confidently land on a rooftop, and like her body hits the like different than like a Jinx who's flailing and fledgling and those like it's something that maybe I'm just like hyper fixating on, but like characters physical weight being conveyed into
another really good example of that throughout.
Yeah,
Vika being like a big imposing character was well portrayed.
Yeah, and that's something that's hard to do, especially when all of these story beats are very vital to like what kind of presence each character is presenting, because like power dynamics is really subtle in I'm perceiving it as a subtle storytelling element, but like every scene is like you're being told a story of like power dynamics and what each character in the room is portraying and what the actual ramifications of their presence is.
Eric, I want to ask you about sound design and music. What did you think of the score, the songs used, and any other sound elements in the series?
Gosh. So some of
How dare
some
you
of the
oppose
songs,
such that as the song person?
yeah. Well, some of the songs were a tad jarring to me as far as what they were, but they were all like, it was really cool that like they did a lot of, you know, the internal sound work by both wrangling artists and then assembling this like really top-notch tier thing. I liked a lot of the general ambiance music. It's more, I'm talking about like when they had some of like the guest artist songs kick in. That was a tad jarring.
Soundtrack instead of the score, basically.
Yeah. But Playground was great, and some of the other ones like had some really good moments when they did kick in. That's all I can say is really that I liked it. And then it's pretty clear to me that they drew some inspiration for how they designed where music is used from some of the HBO shows, if that makes sense. Like there's some definite Game of Thrones or Westworld energy in the score, as well as in like how they assembled like the opening with Enemy from Imagine Dragons and some of the other stuff. which is a good idea because those are like the peak, like the pinnacle of modern television before you get to season 8 or whatever. So like it's really cool that like they were taking advantage of those inside of this medium.
Doug, sound design, score, and soundtrack. What are your big takeaways?
This is probably the one thing I think about the least when I watch something. And Arcane is really no exception. So nothing hit me maybe quite as it did for Eric. I do have sort of two things that stood out to me though. One, kind of the song that plays over the Echo and Jinx fight. That was
so good.
That was great. That was pretty almost perfect for me. And two, I'm not an Imagine Dragons fan, so I would not be sad if that intro changed in the future. I realize it probably won't because money, but I think there's definitely room for lots of different music styles in as the series goes on. But I don't have too many deep thoughts beyond that.
When we were watching this and Doug went to hit the skip intro button on some of these episodes, I was almost tilted. Like I lost my, I was disillusioned as this is happening. I'm in, going back to it, I'm the anime guy. So you don't hit the skip intro button. That's not a thing.
Unless it's
like
season 2 of Fire Force.
It's a figment of your imagination.
This is the only show I think I've ever actually hit skip intro. I don't like Imagine Dragons. It doesn't resonate with me.
I'm not gonna lie, it has grown on me, but I feel where you're coming from. Yeah. It has definitely grown on me, and I have willingly listened to it in my car this week. But I get where you're coming from. Steven, sound design, soundtrack, and score.
I'm gonna have more of a pivot into something that is coming to mind, but I wasn't a huge fan of the Jinx and Echo fight because that was probably the first time I was pulled out of the world, and I was like, ooh, this is kind of overly stylized and kind of plugged on a song. I'm not super into it. I think they took a very emotional conflict and then didn't portray it super well. I think I get kind of what was going on because they were trying to take the visuals of Jinx's fraying mind and applying it, but it was really from Echo's perspective, so I wasn't a huge fan of that scene per se, but that just might be me personally. But I have to be true to myself and say that was the first time throughout all the episodes that there was some immersion breaking. Oh geez, okay, this is a movie.
That's really funny because it's the exact opposite for me, because what they were doing here is this really prominent thing from anime, where it's they have this moment of, it's called sakuga is the Japanese phrase, which is when you specifically break animation style for a specific emotional moment, and then you over invest in a sequence and just to truly try and drive it home. And that was very clearly what they did for that entire thing. And so when that happens for me, as soon as he drops the watch, it's oh, this is the thing. I'm keyed in immediately for whatever is happening on the screen, because I know that this is a moment that they've probably put 3 months of people's lives into this next 10 seconds. And,
yikes, I'm so sorry, those people. I didn't weeb hard enough to understand. Yeah. I need a certain level of IQ to appreciate.
Or just need to watch more Studio Bones work in general, I guess. But that's it's very clear to me that when that happened, it's all right, they really wanted this to hit, so they broke art style, they over invested, and then you can tell just also with the number of frames individually in that sequence that it's higher, and that it was cool. But so, yeah, I can get how that can be really breaking if you're not used to
me chimpanzee needs simple.
Where they suddenly jump.
Now, if we're going to talk about a musical moment that pulled me out of the immersion of the show, it was in episode 5 where they put Imagine Dragons in the show.
Canonically, Imagine Dragons living on.
Imagine Dragons exist within the Runeterra lore. That's how just
the gift of the beer, the cigarette, that's Imagine Dragons.
Imagine Dragons is the new support champion coming in January.
There was one backtrack a hot second. There was one other A+ music moment, and that's when they gave us snippets of the actual Jinx song from her debut,
Yes.
like how many years ago. We hadn't mentioned that, and I thought that was like an excellent bit of like game fan service. In addition to being just really good.
Was if you pay attention, and this is what I'm excited to do when I go through it to watch it a second time, which I haven't had time to do yet, is look for those moments. Like, I need to go find where they directly quoted Warwick theme multiple times in the show because
they sure fucking did.
And like when they used actual sound effects from the champions kits, which they did, I'm pretty sure they straight up used some of Jace's sound effects in episode 8.
Yes.
Yes,
that's
absolutely.
The hammer transformation.
It breaks my immersion somewhat, but at the same time, it's like this is
dog whistle.
It's actualizing like what we've been following. The other thing I wanted to say about the music side of things is I liked that they pulled different style strings. Like the opinion on the Jinx Echo fight has been overwhelmingly positive from the community, not Steven, but the community. The opinion on Our Love at the end of episode 2, which is one of my favorite songs of the whole thing, has been largely negative. Because people thought that like this like 70s Motown style duo thing didn't fit in there. And I'm like, I love everything about how jarring this is right now. It's perfectly unsettling you because of how it doesn't fit with what's going on the screen. I loved it. Like, and it's a great, it sounds like it was written in 1976 and it's a brand new song for the show. It's so cool.
When you're using the record player visual like on every like first bit, and then they I loved it a lot. So I guess we didn't weeb hard enough, and then we have an actual appreciation for good like visual like and musically storytelling.
The music nerd here, so like I gotta nerd out about like the them using like motifs from Champion theme songs and like doing all this stuff.
Like motifs.
Oh yeah, like they're trying really hard at this stuff, and it's like when the Jinx doing a little bit of Get Jinxed.
Yeah. Yep.
Moments. Okay, so now we can talk about the story, I guess, since that's what y'all are mainly here for. I wanted to address the sound and visual elements of it because they're also really fucking good.
Like objectively, like this is kind of extra. Good. Like this is you're doing too much, Riot. Like I see you're willingly throwing out the shekels to get like stuff done, but like come on, we have a heart.
Let's talk story. Doug, how did you feel about the pacing of the events of the story through the series as a whole?
Overall, I think it's very good. That's just kind of one sentence answer. But within that, I think it improves. I think it improves in the second and third acts. In the first act, I thought it was maybe a little bit choppier than it could have been. Or than it needed to be, because I thought they kind of like cut some scenes off when another 30 seconds would have been fine and given us just like that little bit much more. So the first arc I would give like an A- on pacing, but I think arcs B and C really sort of nailed down how fast they wanted everything to move, and yeah. Good job.
Steven, same question.
So it's all intentional, and I get that, and that's where I get kind of nervous. Like, is this supposed to be viewed in the 3 sets of 3, or is it like viewed as a holistic whole? I haven't gotten to do the holistic viewing. I never will because I don't have that much time, and I wish I did. But I feel like each like slow intro with like oh god, what the fuck is happening, and then second it's like pretty good pacing, and third is like oh god, there's a lot going on right now, and that happened every set. And I get that that's intentional, but like if we could keep, I think the slowness of each intro for each set is nice and appreciated in the viewing experience that we have. But I'm curious on going back in a second viewing, or someone that's watching it in a bender, like how that kind of sandbags you a little bit on each set. But I think the pacing on episodes 2 and 3 of each set are really nice. One is really good for world building, and I wonder if they'll change that up for season 2. As like the first set of 3 is, if they do the same pattern, I'm assuming they will, because why not? Money. The first set of 3 can be really slow. A lot of world building, a lot of like character explorations. I don't know if we had enough character explorations per se. Us as League of Legends aficionados get a lot out of it, but I'm curious, as someone coming in blind, like, did you get enough time with these characters to fall in love with them? Did you get enough to get invested in their story and what their struggles are? I'm wondering if that needs a little bit more investment going forward.
Eric, pacing.
So I totally agree with everything. My only thought is that a part of what the pacing being so good cost us is that, like, the terror of Jinx in arcs 2 and 3 felt somewhat diminished until you get to that final dinner table Mad Hatter scene.
Powder.
Where, like, you know, when you think about like the stuff that Jinx is doing in arcs 2 and 3, it's like really terrifying, right? Like she is the sole perpetrator of multiple terrorist acts in Piltover. Like she breaks into a council member's home to kidnap their kid, and like as well as like military weaponry, you know, multiple times, causing like big fires and explosions and stuff. And you get kind of like the personal terror from Caitlyn or from the other officers in that one fire in Act 2. But like you don't get the environmental effect of that at all in this series. Because they needed to keep the pacing going at this rate. And so I feel like we miss a bit of like the raw emotional impact that this character is having on the city. That like already in this plot line, but that it's minimized to some extent for these more personal notes, and that can be good. It's just like one of the things to think about as you're watching this, of like how crazy is this for for like the normal quote unquote people in this day-to-day world, as you know, the mad child is like, you know, committing these atrocities.
I think, not to cut you off there, David. I think yeah, that's a really good point, Eric. How I think we get a good idea of how Jinx's escapades affect the individual characters that we see on the screen. But if we treat the setting like another character, we don't get that. So yeah, it will be interesting to see if they want to like stretch things out a bit more, if they stay in Piltover's on, to get you know, kind of pull back out on the devastation.
Well, and I think the moment where they kind of touch on that isn't on the Jinx side of things, it's on the Jace side of things. If you think about the intro to intro to 9 or intro to 8, where the Baron's kid was the one that was killed, and it's like this environmental side effect of all this fighting and all this madness. And that in the context of, think about the intro to episode 1 and Vander carrying Vi and Powder out of this war zone, this scene of the background where they became orphans. And like, I think it was put in the background, but I think it's kind of always there festering, and is certainly something I would think they might explore if they stick here through season 2. Because like there are real world consequences to what's going on here in terms of the casualties, everything that's going on.
Yeah, and this is where my hot take is that like Jace's perceptive storyline was very underrepresented in like the lens that we had, because the I wish just make more content is what I'm asking at the end of the day. But like Jace's storyline and like impact, like the impact that he's having as a political figure, the impact that he's having as an individual, does not get a ton of screen time. Because like there's a ton of development into everyone else, which is valid, and they need that screen time. It's just like we pinched that part down, so you're not really getting the weight of like, here is a whole society that is being literally terrorized by more or less one person, and the ramifications of their actions is borderline drilling down to one person, that we as the viewer can watch that through. So that I think that's where that lost of impact of what Jinx's actions are is being lost, because Jace's storyline and character development was kind of underrepresented within the subsects of episodes that we have, which I'm hoping, given the ending, that we're going to kind of flash back into more of Jace's storyline, queuing up to like what the hell happened.
So, on the note of the characters, Jace, Victor, Caitlyn, Vi, Jinx, Silco. Who's your favorite? Pick one, Steven, go. Of the main six.
Victor.
State your case.
I think Victor has a good like both sides story, which I think everyone kind of like likes that story. Like, I'm coming from the underground, but I have the knowledge and everything else of being the upsiders, but I have like this huge debilitating illness that is forcing me to choose between the worlds that I'm in. Like, it's not a new story by any means, but I think it's really good to watch that play out. And oddly enough, and this might be the cynic in me, like his commitment to the glorious evolution, like he does all these things in this really beautiful, like I want Piltover to, like, we're doing good. Man, I wish I could remember, like in our pursuit of greatness, like we failed to do good or something like that, to that extent. That's some good sauce. I like that. And that character is really teed up for whatever season 2, or if like maybe they don't do anything with Piltover and Zon in Arcane season 2. That's the biggest bamboozle we could have. But keying him up for that, what we know as like where Victor ends up as the glorious evolution, it comes from him really truly believing that he is in the pursuit of the right thing.
I'm really glad that they're taking his plot as slow as they are too, right? Because like if you think about this from like a Marvel perspective or from like some other major studio lens, he would already be full Victor, full robot, by this point in time.
Pre-credit scene, like in post-credit.
And the fact that like he still is like very human at this point, like he's just turned one of his legs funky. And like and then is now having this like moral quandary even at this point is like so huge that they're taking it this they're treating his character with this much respect, and then also like really trying to build up, and then they weren't going to just hurry it through to have it included, which is like what the major studios like Disney want to have in all these stories. Is like, we have key selling points we need you to hit for the plebs who are expecting you to have everything in their like perfect image, and like they didn't feel the pressure to do that, which was really cool, because
they didn't hire Hollywood producers to do this and Hollywood writers. And don't stray, Riot, please keep your people on this project. Don't and that might be why they get sandbag in like the common media or like the review space. You clearly have a story, so if you succumb to outside pressures to put someone like a showrunner in charge of this that like is seasoned in Hollywood, that's the mistake. Because like exactly what you're saying, their commitment to developing a story that was like, they're Jace's bad guy person, like up until this point, beautiful.
Eric, who do you ride for?
Heimerdinger, clearly. One of the main six. You can talk about Heimerdinger. He's the next question. Man. I think the portrayal of of Jinx in this series was fantastic. Like, and so if I have, like, I really want to say like Vi plus Caitlyn as a unit, but like I can't. I have to say Jinx here, just because of like the sheer terror that like her character inspires in this, the transformation from Powder into Jinx, and then like the sheer difference between Powder in the opening of the first episode, where she's afraid to step down onto the balcony, to Powder in the boat with the firelights, and just like the sheer like madness in that moment, all the way to the end, and her like slouching in the Jinx chair, like before shooting the super mega death rocket was amazing. And of course now there's the secret lair Jinx gaming chair which you can buy from their store, that's just that chair, and it was just phenomenal, and was really great in how they
And
set
I
up
quote,
her character's
"Sheesh,
building.
I'm not that crazy."
Show me the real powder. That's my favorite meme of all of this, is like, show me the real powder. No, I said the real powder. Sky.
Doug, which of the main 6 will you ride for?
Oh man, it's too easy to pick Victor and Jinx now, so I have to be contrary and pick someone else. I'm gonna say Vi. I think Vi has a really compelling arc for me personally. Like, she goes from being like this really competent leader of the gang, keeping her family together, to like this broken, like a broken person in prison, whose world is completely shattered, and her family and her adopted family is all dead or gone. Well, she thinks she thinks they're all dead, so they might as well all be dead to her. But then she still has the force of will to lead Caitlyn around by the nose and still try to get things done. And then ultimately she just starts punching stuff. And who among us can't resonate with punch first, ask questions while punching?
And y'all have set the table nicely for me to talk about Silco, which is what I wanted to do. So Silco is probably my favorite villain portrayal in any story setting since Black Panther. He's clearly actually evil. However, you can understand the motivations. You can understand the drive to get there. He's really fucking good at his job, which I appreciate. I'm gonna talk about favorite scenes in a little bit, but the scene in, I think, episode 8 with him kicking the Chem Barons down was one of my favorite things. Like, it's a lower tier thing, but him like reminding them of their place, I really enjoyed.
Are we talking about the same scene?
Their place in the history,
Yeah.
right? Because
when he shuts the door and starts
The door and
poisoning
releases-
all
Oh,
the
no,
guys.
I'm talking about a different.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm thinking of a different scene. Sorry.
I
like
think
it
know
for the
what
same
scene you're
reason.
thinking of too, which is also a really good one. But
Loyalty is important.
loyalty is important. That's true. It's just, and he had the best one-liners in the entire show. Like, his dialogue and his voice acting, like, everybody was good. His was my favorite. Like, absolutely, hands down, 100%. Now, because I'm the host, I'm going to cheat and also talk about Caitlyn because I want to. We're going to skip over Jace because I think he was boring. Somebody else can fight me on that.
That lays into
I
my
think
point.
Caitlyn
No
is
fight.
I think Caitlyn is going to be the most interesting moving forward. Because where she is positioned at the end of episode 9 and where she and Vi are positioned at the end of episode 9, and knowing the context of the fact that she is the sheriff of Piltover in modern game lore, I am very interested to see how her journey takes shape moving forward. I think she's going to be one of the most interesting characters in Arcane Season 2, and I wouldn't be surprised if she's a more central figure than she was in this one, in which she was a very important figure. But, like, I think she's going to be a big deal in Season 2.
I'm going to be really sad if they time jump. If they do a time skip, like 10 years later after the events, I'm going to be really, really upsetty spaghetti. I will say, because they teed it up for us like, oh, Echo's been with Heimerdinger for 10 years, and like Caitlyn's the sheriff now. And oh man, like the whole point of this is to see how we got here. Do not time skip.
I don't think they're gonna do it unless they do the dumb thing like you said and bring in someone from the outside, because an outside entity would absolutely say time skip and get and to the next big thing, where it's like no, Riot absolutely wants to do this on their terms. So I think that fear will be unfounded.
Yep, I agree.
Especially since the whole plot of Heimerdinger is about not waiting 10 years to try and make the world a better place. And it's like, his shock and awe when seeing the firelight. So everybody's like, you did this in your lifetime? What the hell? Heimerdinger's probably done about nothing in about 200 years. Whoa. And so like it's just and so it's like really cool to like see him like have this awakening experience moment where like he's like, oh wait, so this is why Jason Victor like were so upset and needed change, and like this is what they were looking for, and it is possible to do this in a way that is delivering life and value. And so like that was really neat to have that encounter between those two characters towards the end, and then this awakening experience. But like you can't time skip 10 years after that. That would completely destroy like the lessons learned here. Like you need to see them build.
For science, Eric. For science.
For science.
Okay, so Steven, I'm going to ask you the question that Eric already answered for me. What minor character would you like to talk about that you particularly enjoyed, other than the Big Six?
Ooh.
Anyone else?
I really like Mel's mother, and I cannot remember her name, from Noxus.
Mom Medarda.
Medarda, yeah, it's like head of the Medarda household. Great character. I'll shill a little bit for like this whole series has a lot of strong female characters, and like that was a good one. Like definitely like really bringing it to the table as far as like this is our like kind of like a little sprinkle of what Noxus flair can bring to a show, and like who I am ready, because like it just heard like oh yeah, Darius and Swain are gonna be up in this bitch, and you're gonna be like, yeah, like these are some like villains with like backstory. Like that's setting up for a lot of good stuff in the future.
If they give us Noxus, can you imagine how great it's going to be when they just drop the meme lord Draven into the show?
Oh yeah, like they have to, like, so my prediction is like you have the Piltover and Zon, and then you're gonna have Ionia and Noxus, and like both sides of that. So like it's a really simple like, hey, the formula's working, let's keep doing it, and I won it, so please keep doing the formula. Like I'm all good. Like I'll suck it down, whatever the mixture is. Just give me more of that formula. The Noxus Ionia stuff is going to be really good if they do it. I hope they do. I feel like they're teeing up for it like really easily with like the masks of the Fireflies or the Firelights being very Ionian inspired, and like Piltover themselves like lend themselves to like emulating Ionia, their higher learning with Noxus kind of influence. Like, hey, Noxus is going to need your Piltover stuff to do some fucked up shit in Ionia. That was kind of already teased, so let's just like go that path. I'm down, man.
Doug, pick a minor character. Who did you love? Who stuck to you?
Nobody truly stuck to me from the minor character roster, but I really want to see how they develop Singed. We got like the tiniest bits of him in like 2 episodes, I think. Like one, he's like mentioned at the very beginning of Act A, and then we actually see him on screen with like his like half mask in C. And yeah, I mean, we know what he's going to be, but he's really portrayed as like some sort of big bad, even above Silco. So I'm intrigued how they're going to push Singed further into the story.
You didn't see the little clip of Vander definitely suspended from the ceiling in Singe's classroom at the end there?
I did not. This is gonna be this is going to be one of those things where I need to do a 1 through 9 binge to catch a lot of little stuff that I honestly didn't see the first time.
The whole Warwick arc, it's coming, baby. Get ready.
I'm looking forward to it. I spent the first watch through looking at like the full shape of the story, and now I need to go back in and pick out the finer details.
I got two. I stand Grayson because
Mama Camille.
Shora Gashlu's voice is iconic, and I'm so glad we got it, even though she like bit it in episode 2. Like that's one, and I enjoyed her character, and I wonder if they can just like make her Camille somehow, like make her voice be Camille's voice now, and I'm down. Speaking of champions that are set in Piltover and Zon at some point after this that I really want to see come out, her, and then I actually really liked Savika's character, and the loyalty is important scene and minor plot line in Act 3 I thought was really, really well done, and I enjoyed how straightforward she was, I guess, because she knew her job and she knew her place and she took care of her business, and I appreciate that. Like that
She's
was
a beast.
Yeah, she's a beast. Like it's awesome. Okay, Eric, pick a favorite moment in the show to talk about, a favorite scene, a favorite image, a favorite time.
Well, we already went over my commentary about Sakuga, so like I'm gonna have to find something else to mention now, because like that was the big thing I wanted to call out. Is like there's an awareness of the genre and the medium when you do stuff like that. Gosh. I think the only other thing that that really strikes out at me are like the various returns to the moments of the explosion in Jace's apartment in like different parts throughout the series.
Yeah.
Where there's like the explosion earlier on, where in episode 1, which kicks off the events of the entire thing, and then they rehash it immediately at the start of episode 2, only from Jason, Caitlyn's side on the other side of the door, and then later on towards the end of the series, they go back to that moment again in both Jinx's and Caitlyn's memories as they're in various states of getting beat to shit, and so going the returns to that moment and to this origin was really neat, and how they tried to weave that in throughout this entire thing.
Doug, pick a moment.
I think I can't remember which episode it is. It's arc. It's the third arc. It's arc C. I think it's when the enforcers invade the underground in mass, and then you see, and they start pushing people up against the walls and basically violating their civil liberties up and down. But the one character, nameless figure, gets away and presses the big red button, and then all of a sudden you see these terrifying drug machines just shoot out the walls and wreck everybody, which I think one is a really great action sequence with a lot of terrifying stuff. It's just terrifying to watch these people coked out and just wrecking stuff, but then I think it's also really interesting on another level because it shows just how far Zonites are willing to push their own technology to counter the sort of the martial force from the oppressors. I think it's a good reflection of a couple different things. So,
Steven, pick a moment.
It's going to be a stretch, but ride with me through this. So the Rio scene with Singed and Victor. So that to me is the culmination of this is the story we're trying to tell all in one succinct little bit here. So it's you have something that you care about, and you we have a whole bunch of different agendas culminating into one thing. Is what is it like to want to live? How far are we willing to change ourselves to stay alive? What are we willing to give up and surrender and to be continuing existence, and who are we as a person, what are we willing to become, like all in like two little scenes. It's like, oh, the cute pink lizard's alive, and oh, now it's in a green canister, like yikers McGikers. Like that's all of it.
There's a little legend in TFT that's just Rio, and that is deeply upsetting now.
Yes, yeah, but to me, like, that's the whole thing. It's like, and this might be my fixation on Victor as a character, but like everyone in the film has like, how far are you willing to go? How far are you willing to test your convictions? How far are you willing to physically change? How long are you willing to compromise your morals? And like, how far are you willing to go? And every character has to go through that, and it's all culminated in this like really good visual juxtaposition of like cute pink critter that we like and we want it to live, and then like it's living, but is it like it's really like it's really not great.
The scene with, and again, this is showing my predisposition, but Silco in Marcus's apartment with his daughter, I thought was a really heavy scene and really well done. Mm-hmm. And impactful on Marcus's future, obviously. And I think the other one I wanted to be sure I called out was I called it the loyalty. We did the loyalty scene. We did the scene with the Chem Barons. The end of episode 3, climax of episode 3 was so good, with Vander winning. At like after Jinx's bomb went off, but like Vi fighting everybody down, and then Vander having to fight everybody after getting jumped up, and then like the reactions of Vi and Powder to the events that happened, like the impact of those moments was super huge. And it's been a couple weeks since I've watched that, but like that whole sequence at the end of episode 3 was huge.
It literally the linchpin.
Yeah. So,
Vander is Warwick, right? We're sure of that.
It's going to be really weird if he's not at this point. Like they've pushed so much of this.
That'd be a heck of a bamboozle.
Last question, and then we're going to wrap up for the night. What's your favorite or craziest theory about what's going to happen in Arcane Season 2? Doug, go.
Oh, boy.
What's your weirdest fan fiction? What's going to happen?
I don't really know that I have any sort of like fan fiction of what I think will happen. All I want them to do, I want them to. I think I actually want. For a while, I thought I wanted them to like switch settings and do a completely different story. But no, I want them to just stick where they are and give us more of Piltover Zahn. The one crazy thing I want to see is Blitzcrank crashing Kool-Aid Man style through a wall.
I'm going after you. Blitzcrank is Sky. Blitzcrank goes in Sky's notes.
I will.
That's the theory. Like,
is that yours, or is that out there on the internet? Because I'm scared.
That's the secret project. And if you look at Blitzcrank's lore, which exists, it's all about him trying to do good stuff and be helpful for people and all these things that are like, that's awful lot how Sky was in her life.
Oh, mercy. And Blitzcrank's always been a girl. Mercy.
Thing. So Blitzcrank is Sky. Sky's ghost.
That hurts.
And a giant golem. That's the theory. We got to get that out there. Steven, what's your favorite thing you think could or will happen in Season 2?
My favorite thing that I think will happen and could happen is the Urgot arc, which ties into the end of like the Noxus transition to Ionia and Noxus, which I alluded to earlier. So like it's really simple to like Urgot's big bad. He is like the centerpiece between Noxian's influence into the uprising or not uprising, like the give terrorists weapons kind of situation. And then we have Urgot having to be chased down by Vi and Caitlyn and all those things, because that tees up Jhin, that tees up Camille, that tees up the LeBlanc and all those things, Noxus, like it's a very easy character to insert to kick off your cinematic universe quite easily.
Eric, what's your favorite weird theory about season 2?
Oh, see, so I kind of was gonna. I'm less familiar with the base lore, so what I was thinking though is that like Jin is the one who's gonna show up, who's after Mel and her family, and is like enacting some like master puppet plot behind the scenes, and is like, and so like as Caitlyn and Vi are like, you know, scrambling like mad to deal with the fact that Jinx is blowing shit up and Urgot's selling weapons and Warwick's showing up to like do Warwick things,
eating people.
That there's like this like hidden mastermind and puppet master, and then they have like this confrontation with Jin at the end as he like is, you know, the doing, you know.
The other
There's
one
value in that because
the other one that's fun that I've seen in a couple places around on the internet is Singe talked about losing his daughter in episode 8 or episode 9 when he was talking to Victor, and that was one of those things that like, is that a seed of an idea? And like all of his weird sciences about making life and upgrading stuff and making stuff better. What if Singe's daughter is Oriana?
oh man, if they that's a weird retcon, but that would work. That's kind of the ability of what they would retcon.
So that's just some weird nuggets I've seen out there of how to bring in more of the cast here.
Also, Eric, you're probably really on point with the Jin thing. I do want to interject because timeline-wise, I'm pretty sure Jin is in Ionia doing his bullshit, and like Noxus is in Ionia here at this time, so that's actually really valid, and I hadn't seen that yet, so I like that.
Okay, just like if they do a whole sequence that's just a callback to whichever music video has the Jin Camille sequence, like just let Fortiche animate that. Like this, I want to see that. That's good. That's good.
Now that I'm thinking about it, all of those conflicts are right about to happen. So
Yeah,
that's
like it's leading up to that, and like that's the because it's the Warriors
Worse
remix
too.
because it's Vi and Caitlyn are in that video too. Like Vi and
Jin and
Caitlyn are fighting her
Camille,
head.
Darius, Garen, like it's
That
all.
also gets Imagine Dragons back to be in an episode again. It's like exactly what they're looking for.
They're canonically.
Please understand the war. It's that one and like the Lux and Galio Damasio one. Like I watch those just when I need to get hyped about something. They're so good. Riot Productions out here. All right, it's that time of the episode where Steven, that's an awful nice shirt you're wearing. Do you have anything you want to say about it?
You should buy the shirt at the Funky store. It's over here, funky.store. You should buy this shirt. It's super nice. It's super funky, and you should buy it because it's like Christmas time. So get it for the ones that you want to be funky with because it's a good shirt, and you should buy it because it's good merch. Buy the merch.
But Steven, I'm too broke to buy merch, but I want to watch videos of people playing video games. Do you have anything for that?
I think we play video games. We're doing the Poser series where me and the boys run through video games that I haven't played because I'm a video game poser. Me and Eric are doing the Pokemon trading card games. Me and my buddy are doing the Halo, and I fumble through the Metroid games. Like there's a lot of good things. So playlists are appearing right there in the corner. Wow, click on them. You should watch those things, and they'll be at the end card, so you could watch other video game content and watch me not be a poser anymore. Thank you.
And now we end with the typical end of the show, and we're gonna start with Doug. Doug, what you playing?
Not tons right now. Life is kind of busy. And doesn't give me a lot of time to do the fun things that I want to do. But I am still an ARAM main on League, where I'm kind of on a brutal run of just trash teammates, but I'm doing my best.
It's the equivalent of horny on main, ARAM on League. Like,
I guess. Yeah, we'll go with that.
Eric, what you playing?
I've been having fun with Ultimate Spellbook. It's a good game mode. So far, my favorite combo was like I think Caitlyn with Luxalt, where it's just like fire the
stuff.
Caitlyn, fire Luxalt. We've also been doing a lot of arcane ship lanes. Run the Caitlyn Vi. It's very satisfying.
So, if I may, I have two Ultimate Spellbook things. One of them, a friend of the show was playing some Ultimate Spellbook before we recorded tonight. I don't know if Eric was in Discord for this, but they had Caitlyn with Cho'Gath ult. So you get this really tall Caitlyn going on, right?
Giant woman.
he streamed this, so I saw what he was talking about. When Caitlyn's model gets taller, her bullets come out from a higher point, but immediately drop down to the height they're supposed to be at. So they come out in a curve, and it looks really funny. So that's a trick for your Ultimate Spellbook hijinks. Is Caitlyn with Cho'Gath ult. Make a real big Caitlyn.
Yes, breaking Riot's code, my favorite.
I have played one game of Ultimate Spellbook, and I got the dirtiest comp I've ever seen, and I'm never not playing another game. I got Poppy with Jarvan ult.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
That's disgusting.
Yeah,
I
that's
solo
rude.
killed my opponent in lane 4 times, and I'm not that good at this game.
That's some rude dude
It's
It's
behavior.
not fair.
Yeah,
Because I can
that's
just
something.
push R and then E, and then you're dead. And stuck here forever. Like, it was, like, deeply satisfying as a Poppy main, and I felt a little bad about it.
God, what diabolical pack did you make to get that set up?
The game just gave it. That's why I'm like, I'm not doing this again. I can't get better than that. It will never be better than that. Especially because I dared to pick Poppy blind in a solo lane. Like you can't do that. It doesn't work.
Wait, this is
But when I
illegal.
can totally just CC you for 5 seconds and do 800 damage at level 6 with no items. I'll be alright. Steven, what you been playing?
I've been playing some Pokemon Unite because I'm a goober. That's been fun. I've been looking at my consoles longingly. I got a 3D printer, so that's been fun. I made you can see I hung up my controllers and stuff. That's fun. They're there. They're suspended in the sky. Yes. I'm still absolute trash at Rune King. That's way too big brain for me. But I will figure out how to play an RPG. I might make Eric come
Not
over.
having grown up playing turn-based RPGs and that just not being built into your system, I can't relate to that at all.
Have you tried it? I don't know. Maybe I'm just really just terrible, but it's a harder game.
For me, it's just Final Fantasy X. I know how that works. Whatever.
Y'all have to teach me the way, so I don't have to be such a.
It's Final Fantasy X with extra steps. That's all it is.
Yeah, totally.
I have been playing mostly Teamfight Tactics these days. Although I will say I have now played through the tutorial and introduction of Legends of Runeterra, which I did on a whim a couple nights ago, and the story event they're doing in Legends of Runeterra for the Arcane release is actually a really interesting style of gameplay. It's almost it's a single player adventure thing where you can upgrade the cards in your deck and upgrade different things as you go, so they do different stuff. It's it Labs, I think it's called in there, and it's similar to whatever it's called in Hearthstone. It's the weird mode for right now, but it's a really, really detailed story-based thing that's been really fun to dig into, having never played the game at all before. I have this Jinx deck that they built for me, and it's really fun because Jinx is just basically red from Magic, and I know how to play that. It's very nice. I enjoy it. So yeah, and then a TFT. I've been just trying to make Yordles happen, and it still can't make Yordles happen. It's hard. No one understands.
I also played Halo. Sorry, I forgot I did that. Halo is great. I really like the new Halo a lot.
And I know that Eric has been playing Pokemon Brilliant Diamond. Um, and I'm like 10 minutes into Pokemon Shining Pearl.
Did you get
Both
the
of which
shiny
came out
Starly?
this week. So by the next time we record, I will have played a lot of Pokemon Shining Pearl and will have thoughts on it. And hopefully won't have my game hard locked by Pokemon's bad coding. Because that's been a problem this week that I have seen on the Pokemon Reddit.
Oh
Because it's
no.
easy to get yourself stuck in corners by stuff that is out of your control, and then you can't do anything. And you
I
better hope you have an autosave somewhere else.
I saw the
Jeez.
NPC like goon lock.
It's that, and it can happen in one of the gyms with the snowballs moving around. And then
Yikes.
there's just like, there's nothing you can do. You better hope you have a save somewhere or you're screwed.
They'll patch it. They did a day -1 patch actually, so I have a lot of faith in Ilka, whatever. The Pokemon Home people. They made the great titles like Pokemon Home and Nerf.
I almost kept a straight face for that, but I couldn't do it. Anyway, you may notice this coming to your feeds a little bit early this week if you pay regular attention. We recorded a day early because of the Thanksgiving holiday, and some people having to travel and some people having to do a lot of cooking and shit. So you'll get this to your feeds probably on a Wednesday morning to have for your Thanksgiving drives or what have you. But then I suspect we'll probably be back about on our normal time next week. And I have no idea what we're going to talk about next week, so this will be fun. It'll be great.
Many things can happen in
Doug
the
will
wait.
feed us ideas. This is
Could always talk about more Arcane.
yeah. If you ever hear random question from a viewer, assume it was Doug that asked it because it often is. So yeah, that's about it for reaction time this week. Thank you, Doug, for coming on. Glad to have you on to chat some stuff.
Anytime.
This has been Reaction Time. We will see you next time. Time.
He did the joke. He said the thing.